Well, 20 years ago, when I was in the middle of a different line of work, writing drama television series in Los Angeles, I had a revelation while waiting for my car at a parking valet after a party. Standing beside me was a wise, Oscar-winning actor, director, writer who had a couple more decades of experience in show business than I did and had enjoyed more luck than bad luck in his career. And he asked me what I was working on, and I told him about a couple of scripts that I was juggling, making sure that I didn't sound naive enough to think that those scripts were definitely going to get made. I thought I was layering in just the right amount of pessimism to sound professional, to sound like a realist. His eyes found mine, and he said softly, "Optimism is a choice. Pessimism is a choice, too. You can choose optimism." Then he got into his car, and I was left there realizing I'd heard something very important. And that's when I began trying to teach myself, for the very first time in my life, to choose optimism. And after a while, I actually got pretty good at it. I came to realize that choosing pessimism as an emotional defense against disappointment does not work. If you suffer a loss, you're going to be in just as much pain, whether you saw that loss coming or you didn't. And so I want to repeat to you tonight what that wise man said to me that night. Optimism is a choice. There is no reason for you not to go to sleep tonight without hope. Nelson Mandela went to sleep every night with hope. For 27 years, Nelson Mandela fell asleep with hope in his heart in the Robben Island prison. Nelson Mandela was an optimist. Nelson Mandela always believed he was going to get out of prison. He remained an optimist for those 27 years in prison. Nelson Mandela had more reason to be a pessimist than any of us have ever had. Nelson Mandela was an optimist for his future freedom when he was in prison and for the future of his country. In his inauguration speech as president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela said this:
"We have triumphed in the effort to implant hope in the breasts of the millions of our people."
If Nelson Mandela could choose optimism, could choose hope, you can choose optimism. You can choose hope. If your hope is that Kamala Harris wins the presidency, you can be thankful that Kamala Harris and her staff have run as near perfect a presidential campaign as we have ever seen. Kamala Harris has justified your hope, and Kamala Harris has earned your hope. This is not the time to forget how to hope. Now is the time to enjoy that hope. Share that hope. Share that hope with your family, with your children, with your friends. Optimism is a choice. Hope is a choice. Choose hope. On this final day of the presidential campaign, the candidates made their closing statements to the country with Vice President Harris, as always, trying to unite the country.
We all have so much more in common than what separates us. There is power in that. There is power in that. And there's lasting power in that.
And of course, in Donald Trump's closing statement, he praised a convicted rapist and said he wished he could see the convicted rapist punch Kamala Harris, violently attack Kamala Harris. The convicted rapist is former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson, who was sentenced to 6 years in prison for rape, which did not in any way diminish Donald Trump's admiration for Mike Tyson, since Donald Trump has been found to have committed what a judge called the equivalent to the definition of rape by a civil jury in New York City. And of course, on the Access Hollywood tape, Donald Trump is a self-confessed, repeated sexual assaulter.
I know Iron Mike, and he's a great guy, Mike Tyson. A great guy. He's a good man. Hey, Mike's been through a lot, but he could fight. Let me tell you, that guy could fight. But Can you imagine Mike? Oh, he says, put Mike in the ring with Kamala. That would be interesting.
Donald Trump, presidential candidate, says the convicted rapist is a good man. The Trump crowd, of course, cheered for the convicted rapist being given the chance to punch Kamala Harris, to knock out Kamala Harris. The Trump rally-goers should never be mistaken. With most Trump voters, 99% of those voters have never been to a Trump rally, would never go to a Trump rally. It's mostly repeat customers at those free Trump rallies. And just when you thought it was impossible for a candidate to be stupider than Donald Trump, we get 40-year-old James David Vance, who was unable to stay on the Trump campaign message about garbage for the final hours of the campaign. You will recall that the Trump campaign spent the last several days lying about Joe Biden calling Trump supporters garbage, which the president very clearly did not do. And for anyone who was confused about it, President Biden clarified that he did not call any people or person garbage. He called the racist jokes at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally garbage. Donald Trump, prior to Madison Square Garden, has called all Democrats garbage. He's used that word. Donald Trump has been calling Americans garbage in his speeches for a very long time. But the immediate lying stance the Trump campaign adopted is that it's absolutely outrageous for anyone to call another human being garbage. Trump fanatics, including Donald Trump Jr., apparently dressed up in garbage bags, trash bags, for Halloween to try to comedically make the point that no one should ever call another human being garbage. Donald Trump struggled to climb into a garbage truck on the campaign trail last week to try to reinforce the moralistic message that no one should ever call another human being garbage or trash or anything like that. And today, the stupidest vice presidential candidate in history blew the whole charade about the Trump campaign's delicate sensitivity about calling people garbage or, in this case, trash.
We are going to take out the trash in Washington, D.C., and the trash's name is Kamala Harris.
That man is 40 years old. If he lives his life the way his hero Donald Trump has, he's going to spend the next 38 years getting stupider. So when he is 78, the age Donald Trump is tonight, he will be even more incoherent than Donald Trump. But we can be very sure J.D. Vance will not be part of our politics when he is age 78, because his political career will surely end much sooner than that, possibly as soon as tomorrow night. This afternoon, Vice President Harris and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stopped by a Puerto Rican restaurant in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Yes. Yeah, we don't hear no. Yeah. So I have to say, I eat no for breakfast. Which means I don't hear no.